So I know it's been a while and all, but I don't know how many of you are actually watching. So continuity wise, if you guys are confused by the changing of sets and all that, uh, I'm not gonna explain it to you. Life is life. I can only do what I can when I can, and I want to make videos sometimes, and sometimes I just can't do it. I know I said I was gonna do Twin Peaks in my last video, if anybody remembers that, and I still plan on making that video, but I think this will be a bit more interesting. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a while, but today I wanted to make I think this is an interesting video. Seeing as my last Malazan video is the most viewed video I have on my channel thus far, I thought I'd make sort of a follow-up to that now that I have read the necessary books to make any content about it. And that is a pretty simple question, which I don't think I've seen covered very often, though admittedly I haven't looked around that much. So if there are other videos making this, trying to talk about this exact same point, uh, I haven't seen it. So it's pretty straightforward. It is, should you read the Ian Esselmont Malazan books? Now this is an interesting question because in the fandom, it's seemingly a take it or leave it option. People usually recommend Malazan, they're recommending the main 10 written by Steven Erikson. And that sort of makes everything else a bit of an outlier in the universe, or whatever you want to call it. So I guess we got started to it. Ian C. Cameron Esselmont is a Canadian author, just like his buddy and partner Steven Erikson. He has published about 10 books at this point. Each of them take place in the Malazan universe, and I have almost read them all. I'm currently making my way through the most recent of his books, Forge of the High Mage, which is the 4th book in the Path of Ascendency series, and I'm almost done. Not quite. I thought about maybe waiting till I was done with it, but at this point, I'm not going to spoil anything in this video, so I figure I've read enough of his work that I can make an informed judgment on it. So let's get right down to the question. Why should you read Ian Esselmont books? Well, I guess the first thing is, do you love the world of Malazan? The world of Malazan is phenomenal. I talked about it, I believe, in my last review, but there's not many other fantasy worlds quite like it. It is huge, it is complex, and there are so many angles to it that just aren't explored in the available books. And I think that's part of why people love it so much, because the world is so massive and epic in scope that it cannot be contained even within the series that exist. And I think that's what makes the Esselmont books special in their own way. Now, let's get something out of the straight. They are very much optional reading. I don't think I would ever force anybody to read any Malazan book, and I would certainly not tell anyone to read the Esselmont books first, because that doesn't make any sense in however way you put it. But I do think that if I were to recommend it to people, I would start with those who really love the world itself and want to see the aspects of it that aren't explored much, such as the Crimson Guard and the creation of the Empire, and there's a Coral and the Coral Rye, and there's all these other aspects of it and characters who are mentioned briefly throughout the main 10 books by Erikson, but you don't get to meet or get their character expanded upon beyond a few passing passages here and there later throughout the blocks of text that are that series. And I think specifically the Path of Ascendency series is sort of Esselmont's best work, in that it's really where he comes his own as a writer, and he's telling the story I personally wanted to see. Like, the Crimson Guard is all well and good and all, and we get plenty of time with them in the books of the Malazan Empire. I think that's what that series is called. Novels of the Malazan Empire. And we get Playtime Crimson Guard there. So if you want to see more over there, that's where you go. But personally, the thing I was more excited about was the story of the Malazan Empire itself and how the partnership between Kellanvet and Dancer formed and how that became that legendary duo that we know in the main series as by two different names. I'm not going to spoil in case somebody hasn't read the first two books of Malazan, and well, yeah, sort of that, isn't it? So those, I think, are the main things I would put down as to why you should read the series. It's a nuanced question that requires a few different. It's gonna depend very much on you as a reader and an individual. What are you comfortable with? Because as far as reading goes, the Esselmont books are a lot lighter in content, both, I mean, in the sense of violence and everything that, you know how, if you've read the Malazan books, you know how dark they are. These are not as bad. They're also a lot easier to read. They're not as dense, written as the main 10 Erickson books, and I believe the other Malazan books he's written. I have not, just full disclosure, I have not read any of the other Erickson books besides the main 10. I do plan on doing that eventually. I want to get through the whole of the canon, the Malazan canon, but I haven't gotten to it yet, It's on the list. What can you do? I guess the next thing we should talk about is what is the situation in which you should avoid this series? I'm sure I'll come back to why you should and should not later in the video, but I think I should start with my main 2 points. You should avoid this series if you are primarily a Stephen Erickson fan, because the Esselmont books are not written by Stephen Erickson, and Stephen Erickson is a very different kind of writer. The reason I think a lot of people love the main 10 books is because they are a masterwork of just fantasy fiction that only a few other authors can really live up to. And if you're a fan of Erickson primarily because of his writing and the way he approaches the world itself, then I don't think you're necessarily going to like what Esselmont has here. Because while he's not, I would never say Esselmont is a weaker writer by any sense. I would say that his writing lacks the punch that Erickson manages to deliver pretty consistently. His characters are fine for the most part, and he clearly understands the world because he's the co-creator, of course, so why wouldn't he? But it's also a situation in which if you're in it for the way Erickson writes stories in worlds, you're not going to get what you want, which is fine. But I thought I'd put that out there. I guess the next situation is if Malazan as a whole doesn't work for you, then you should definitely not read it. Now, this is a no-brainer, obviously. If you didn't like the main books, you don't like Erickson's writing, you might actually like Esselmont a bit more in theory. However, if Malazan as a concept doesn't work for you, then I just say stay away from it all and good luck to you. Plenty of other books out there. Not everybody's going to make it through Malazan. God, it took me like 3 years of my life basically to read it. I think that's what I said in the intro of my main Malazan video. But yeah, no, it's not going to be for everyone. And if you're not into the main series or any of it, then don't bother. And I guess, yeah, my next point is just sort of tagging on to the next one. If the world isn't an interest of you, then the best, because the Esselmont books are very much a companion piece to the main series. I think everything else released in the Malazan world is a companion piece. I know that the Karkan has a trilogy or whatever Erickson has released up to this point. I know everything else is all companion pieces, published sort of sequels and stuff like that. But as of right now, as far as I understand, and as far as I believe personally, everything else is companion pieces and are not necessary to read. The main 10 are the ones you want to read if you want to get the gist of the story. I think they can provide a lot for you if you are interested in the world, but as I sort of said in various ways now, if you're not interested in doing it, it's not going to be worth your time. And Esselmont is not a bad writer, but especially in the novels of the Malazan Empire, you may feel a bit more drag. While I think Erikson compensates for that drag with some incredible story work and character moments, I think that that this is where Esselmont sort of falls a bit more flat for me personally. Admittedly, I don't know if I've met anybody who's really, really into the Esselmont books. Again, no complaints. Like I don't know anybody who's read the series aside from myself, and of course the community of people on the internet who have read it, which is my main source of just people I can discuss it with. But yeah, it is a complicated issue, I think, and it's better understood as a case of people, they're gonna like what they're gonna like, and they're not gonna like what they don't like. Look at that word salad I just did there. I don't know. If I ramble on, guys, just let me know in the comments. This is all me. Learn to be better in front of the camera. Learn to use rhetoric better. You put in that stuff I'm learning in school to use. But yeah, I'll get back to what I'm saying. They're good. If you want my personal opinion on the matter, I think the Esselmonts are good. Books are good. They're not perfect. They're nowhere near the caliber of quality that the main 10 are. And as I said, I haven't read the other Erikson books, so I don't know how good those are. I've heard some mixed things. But admittedly, if you are interested, I'd say give it a shot. Should you start with Knight of Knives, though? That's going to be up to you. I would argue that maybe you should start with Path of Ascendency, because it is technically the prequel to the main 10 books, and so if you want a kind of continuation of that story, you can go backwards in time and check out the stuff. And there's a lot of weirdness and confusion, but admittedly, I think what I appreciate about Esselmont is that he understands this world as only he and Erikson can. And so if you want a series that gives you the same feeling that the main 10 did, you might not get the exact same thing with this, but I think it's about as close as you're going to get in Malazan form, that is, as far as other series go. I can't attest to those. I know there's a lot of other great epic fantasy series out there coming out, and are already out, and so I would recommend you check those out. What they are, though, I'm not going to claim to know because I haven't read them yet. So, in conclusion, you do what you want. You read what you want. I'm not trying to tell you anything. I am simply trying to provide some advice, some insight, anything you might need to make the decision whether or not you want to read these books. Because they are 10 books. 6 of them in one series, the other 4 in a different one. And are they worth your time? That's going to depend entirely on you and what it is you like about Malazan. Because I wouldn't recommend starting here at all. I know I've already said that, and that's what I gotta say to that. It's not required reading. If you want to just read the main 10 and walk away, perfectly acceptable. Nothing wrong with that. I know I thought about it. Honestly, my decision to read it was mostly the fact that I had the time to do it, and the audiobooks went by quickly when I was working. So, yeah, I think that's about all I have to say on the subject. It's going to be a shorter video than I thought it was. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope it provided something for you. I hope you are all doing well at the end of this winter, wherever life might be taking you. And I hope you'll consider the Esselmont books. You don't have to read them, like I've said. I hope you won't dismiss them out of hand, because they do provide something. There is a service to be gained from that. And I think there's no point in ever dismissing something just because it's believed to be lesser by some. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you soon.